Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Sam Teets. I'm doing a video today for the Grueling Truth. We're going to cover the first 2 days of playoff basketball. We're going to go through each game, talk about some highs, lows, talk about some expectations for the following week, as well as just some basic points about the games. There's going to be a little bit of NBA recap, I guess you could say, for the NBA show for the Grueling Truth. It's the website and also the Facebook page that I'm doing an internship with this fall through my school. So let's start with the Miami Heat versus the Indiana Pacers. This was the first game tip off, not yesterday, but the day before that. So I guess that makes it Monday. The Miami Heat come out and they win 113 to 101. Now the Heat struggled at the end, well, I guess during the bubble, because they just faced a tough schedule. They weren't winning games. They had some injuries. Bam Adebayo was not hitting on his shots. He was a little bit off. So Miami was struggling, even though they did beat the Indiana Pacers during the time of the bubble. But Bam was back at it yesterday. He seemed perfectly fine. 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 17 points, everything you need from him. He's one of the most versatile centers in the league. And Jimmy Butler was on one the other day, 28 points, 4 steals, 2 blocks, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. This is what I'm saying. Jimmy Butler's not the kind of guy who's going to go out there and give you 35 a night. He's not Damian Lillard. But he's a great defender. He's a great facilitator. He'll give you like 24, 5, 5, 5, and 5. I mean, he's honestly that kind of guy. So he's a very good player for them. 8 of 15, and he hit 2 clutch 3-point shots at the end of the game, which is big for Jimmy because honestly, he's taken to DeMar DeRozan route this year and just hasn't really been shooting threes that much. Which I mean, he played your strength, man, and he's done really well. He's gonna be an All-NBA player this year. The other big storyline: the Miami Heat moved Kendrick Nunn to the bench. He struggled during the bubble. He was originally their starting shooting guard. They moved him to the bench. He didn't even play yesterday. I didn't even play on Monday. Goran Dragic, who had been their sixth man, I think he only had like 3 starts all year. Former All-Star point guard, he comes into the starting lineup. He goes 9 for 19, so he takes the most shots of anyone on the Miami Heat. And he goes 4 for 9 from three-point land, so the most three-point shots from anyone on Miami and the most three-point makes. He ends up putting out 24 points, second most on the team, 5 assists, 6 rebounds. He's huge for them. I think him, Bam, and Jimmy Butler are going to be the 3 guys who are really going to decide how this team works out this year. And, of course, the bench was actually pretty good, too. Tyler Hero comes out 5 for 9, 15 total points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. I mean, he's giving me a spark plug for them. They need him, especially if Goran Dragic is going to be a star and if Kendrick Nunn's not going to be playing a lot of minutes. For the Pacers, TJ Warren, 22 points, still a pretty good game. 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals. Not the numbers he was putting exactly early on in the bubble, but still pretty good production for him. Malcolm Brogdon, 22 points as well, 10 assists. He's been really good for Indiana at the point guard spot this year. Victor Oladipo, big storyline for him. Only 9 minutes, 0 for 2. Exited the game with an eye injury, I believe. Did not return. So his health has always been in question for them. And if he's around, I mean, he's a big difference maker. He's not playing at the All-NBA level that he was at 2 years ago now at this point. But he's still a very productive player. And with Domantas Sabonis not there, they need guys like him to really be stepping up and playing at a different level. And he just wasn't there for them the other day. Bench though, right? They had 2 10-point scorers on the bench. They ended up with 101 points on the day. I'm taking Miami to win this series. It could go 6 or 7 games. I could see that. I'm leaning more towards 5 or 6, honestly. I think these are 2 fairly evenly matched teams. I think the Indiana Pacers are just a bad matchup for the Heat in general. I think they would have done better against someone like the Philadelphia 76ers or even the Boston Celtics, but that's not the case. They get Indiana in the first round. I'm taking the Miami Heat. I think they have an edge, but that's not the biggest surprise from Monday. The biggest surprise from Monday was the Orlando Magic coming out and being the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks, 122 to 110. It was pretty clear at the end of the game the Magic were going to win. I mean, the Bucks never really got back into this game after, I want to say about the second half. They just really weren't in it. It was Orlando's game for most of the time. Thanks to Nikola Vucevic, their starting center, former All-Star. 15 for 24 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, 35 points, 4 assists, 14 rebounds. He was going off. My issue with Orlando in the future is I don't know if you count on Vucevic to go out there and put in 35 and 14 a game. I just don't think you're going to get that kind of production from him. He might get you 20 and 10 a game, but I don't know if he's going to get that kind of star power every night. I just don't see that happening. So they're going to need other guys to step up. And Fultz did pretty well. Markelle Fultz, of course, who flamed out in Philadelphia, has been all right for Orlando. He went 6 from 11 the other day, 15 total points, 6 assists. So he's playing pretty well. Ross coming off the bench. He's been really good for them as a bench player all year long. 18 total points. And DJ Augustine off the bench as well, 11 points, 11 assists. The Orlando Magic are a pretty well-rounded team, honestly, which is somewhat surprising to say because I called them cannon fodder earlier in the week. I thought they would have been out in potentially 4 or 5 games, but now it's looking like they can make this. I don't know. I still think the Bucks to win the series, obviously, but I still think they could go maybe 6 games here to make it a little bit more competitive. And of course, in the other end, the Bucks. I mean, Giannis still got 17 rebounds, 7 assists, 31 points, but he's just always going to do that. That doesn't always mean this team's going to win. Chris Middleton struggled only 4 for 12, 14 total points. Eric Bledsoe 5 for 11, 15 points. It's kind of what you want from him. But Brook Lopez was only 2 for 9, 0 for 4 from three-point land, 5 total points. You need more from him at the center spot. And he really can stick with Vucevic during the game, which is somewhat surprising because you expect good defense from the Lopez brothers in Milwaukee. That just didn't happen. The bench, Grant Hill did. I mean, not Grant Hill. Sorry about that. George Hill did his job. 16 total points, going 5 for 9. But really no one else on the bench really coming out there and performing at a high level and putting out kind of production they would need to beat a red-hot Orlando Magic team. I'm sorry about that. If you can hear that, that's a ad playing in the background. But we move on. The next game that came up, third game of the day, the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Houston Rockets. I originally thought Thunder could win this in 7 games. I'm starting to back off that. I think Houston could win this in 5 and 6 based off what I saw in game 1. Danilo Gallinari went out there, 29 points, so he had a great game. Chris Paul came with 1 assist shy of a triple-double, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 20 points total. And Steven Adams had 17 points. The biggest issue for them was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Dennis Schroeder just weren't performing at the level they're used to. Shai only went 2 for 8, only 9 total points. Dennis Schroeder 3 for 12, 6 points. And when you're having – those are 2 of your star guards. Your lineup this entire year has been your 3 guards, Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Dennis Schroeder. And when 2 of them are not playing well at all, you're going to lose those kind of games. So we ended up having a 123-108 solid win for the Houston Rockets. That's without Russell Westbrook. There's no timetable on his return yet. But of course, James Harden goes out there, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 37 points, 12 for 22, shooting 6 from 13 from 3. If he plays like that throughout the entire series and you don't get Dennis Schroeder and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander playing at a high level, even without Russell Westbrook, I think the Rockets have a clear advantage in the series, which is disappointing because I expect this to be a pretty close one. And after game 1, it's not looking like it's going to go that direction. And, of course, the big upset of the night, even though a lot of people were putting money, this would be the outcome, so it's not really that surprising after all. Portland Trailblazers beat the Los Angeles Lakers 100-93. Very low-scoring game. If you had told me beforehand that the Lakers would have held the Trailblazers to 100 points, I would have said they would have won. Because in the modern NBA, usually you have to score about 120 points to win games. So for Portland to be held to 100, that's a defensive victory for the Lakers. But offensively, LA just wasn't there. 93 total points. And that's not Anthony Davis or LeBron James' fault necessarily. LeBron was 9 for 20. 23 points, 16 assists, 17 rebounds. So he's doing everything. He was out there playing a high level. He was responsible, I guess, for over 50 points. Then we consider those 16 assists. Anthony Davis, 8 for 24. So maybe not the best shooting night, 0 from 5 from 3. But still got 28 points, 11 rebounds. The big, of course, storyline is that the shooting three-point shots for them just haven't been there. And that's on Danny Green. That's on KCP. That's to some extent on Kyle Kuzma as well. Deion Waiters really didn't get to play. Alex Caruso played a lot. He didn't shoot well at all either. J.R. Smith didn't play. It was just an overall disappointing night. And I have to say, I think the Lakers have an advantage inside with Anthony Davis. Even guys like JaVale McGee. I think McGee needs to play more on 13 minutes because he's a guy who has these super long arms. And he's a good matchup for Nurkic underneath. I think McGee is a player who needs to play more than 13 minutes per game. I think Dwight Howard needs to play. Well, about 15 minutes per game is probably right for him, but I think they need to play with those centers more often and take advantage of what they have inside in terms of size. And they didn't do that last night. And the outside shooters, like I said, Danny Green has been off all since getting into the league. He hasn't been right. KCP went 0 for 9 last night on Monday night. 0 for 5 from the three-point line. You just don't expect that from him. Danny Green was 4 for 12 overall, 2 from 8 from 3. So the shooting just hasn't been there. Alex Caruso 1 for 6, over 3 from three-point land. I mean, they're missing Avery Bradley right now. So I know Avery Bradley's not a great shooter necessarily, but he was a spark plug for them. He was a reliable scorer for them. When they needed someone to step up, he was that guy during the regular season. And he was also a terrific defender. Probably I would say better at this point than someone like Danny Green or KCP. He would have been the guy you would like to watch match up with Damian Lillard. And they don't have that. Lillard, of course, had a night like he always has since the bubble started. 34 total points, 5 assists, 5 boards. Nurkic, 16 points, 15 boards, double-double for him. Double-double for Carmelo Anthony, 10 boards, 11 points, although they only shot 3-11 from the field. Lakers will take that any day. But Nurkic didn't shoot that well either, 4 from 11 from the field. So they did a good job containing those guys. It's just that, like I said, in the modern NBA, you can't score 93 points. You need to score closer to 120 usually to win games. So the Lakers, the offense, just super disappointing. And all those people who put money on the Portland Trailblazers to come out there and win this series, they're licking their chops. They think they might have some money here. I think they might have caught something, and maybe they can go on a run here. I don't know if I'm going to see that happening. I don't feel confident in the Portland Trailblazers being able to hold this out and be able to pull it out over a 7-game series. I think there's going to be a time when the Lakers just get hot, and it's going to happen when these games just blow out Portland Trailblazers. It's going to happen. And from that point on, it might be a different series. So we'll see how that goes. But that was actually Tuesday's slate games. We're going to go back to Monday now. I think I got the days messed up, but that's on me. Monday's games opened up with Utah Jazz playing the Denver Nuggets. And this was a game that went to overtime, and this was Donovan Mitchell's really a breakout game for him. 9 for 33 from the floor, 6 for 15 from three-point land, 57 total points, the third highest scoring game in NBA playoffs history, trailing Michael Jordan, Elgin Baylor. So he had a great game, but he kind of blew it late. He had an 8-second backcourt, well, not an 8-second. He had an 8-second violation, which essentially that he didn't bring the ball past half court within 8 seconds. And you were playing time in the NBA. He wasn't getting pressed either. He was just walking the ball up, and he took the moment. That's the kind of mistake you can't be making, even if he's like third or fourth year. You can make that as a rookie, and it's understandable, but you can't be making it at this point in your career when you're trying to be competitive and you're trying to win an NBA title. So I think that was a huge mistake by him, and in the end, they lose 135-125. Mitchell is arriving as a star player. I think we've seen him get to the point where he can probably carry a team, and he'd be the lone star or the best star on that team. But the little mistakes continue to hound him throughout his career, and we saw it again on Monday. Other players played well enough for them. Jordan Clarkson, 18 points. Rudy Gobert, 17 points. Joe Ingles was hitting his shots throughout most of the game, 19 total points, 5 for 12 from three-point land. So a good game from Jazz, a good showing, but the Denver Nuggets, I think, have the upper hand in this series. I think they could win 5 or 6 games. They go out there, they win it, despite some bad shooting from guys like Paul Millsap, who only went 3 for 10. Even Michael Porter Jr. was hot early on in the game, but kind of went cold later on, especially in the second half. Just wasn't the same player. But you had Jamal Murray getting hot, though, in that second half. Jamal Murray finished the game 3 for 20 from the floor, 6 and 9 from 3, 36 total points, 9 assists, 5 boards. And of course, Nikola Jokic, the superstar on that team, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. He was doing what he had to do. And I just think the Nuggets have so many good players and so many good role players. They only have one real superstar. I think Jamal Murray could be a low-tier all-star at most. I think that's where he could qualify him. I think Michael Porter Jr. could be an all-star in the future, but not right now. But they just have so many good players and such a good lineup. You honestly have maybe 9 to 10 guys you could play night in and night out and still have a really good rotation. And you can't say that about many teams in the NBA. So I think Denver must just have too much talent on their roster for the Utah Jazz to stay alive in the series and go to even 7 games. I think the Denver Nuggets take this series in 5 or 6. That takes us to the next game from Monday, the Brooklyn Nets versus the Toronto Raptors. And this was kind of what you would expect. And this is what I thought the Magic Bucks game would be. I thought this would be kind of blowout, but it wasn't. The Raptors won 134-110 over the Brooklyn Nets. And really what this is, Brooklyn without Kevin Durant, without Kyrie Irving, it's really Karis LeVert and company. I know Jarrett Allen, sorry about that. I'm thinking about Jonathan Allen from the Washington football team. But Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert are kind of the guys who have seen significant minutes for this team in the past. Joe Harris is out there as well. But really, this is not a Nets team that should be in the playoffs necessarily. They're not a team that has the talent to really compete at this level. Especially with, like I said, with KD and Kyrie, you don't have that kind of talent. This is possibly the worst team in the 2020 NBA playoffs. I think that's a pretty easy assumption based on what the Magic just did the other day. I don't see them coming out and beating the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are just a good overall team. Pascal Siakam, who wasn't even shooting well the other day, still had 18 points, 11 rebounds. And like I said, you got guys like Marc Gasol, OG Anunoby, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet. There's just so many guys like, and even when these guys has a bad night, someone else can come out and perform well. You got Serge Ibaka coming off the bench. He's been huge for them. He's been huge for them the past 2 years. People forget he was fading when he went to the Orlando Magic a couple years ago, and then he goes to Toronto, and suddenly it's like he's reborn, almost like a new player. So I think the Raptors are going to win this in probably 4 or 5 games. They might drop one just because they make silly mistakes sometimes. That's just what Toronto does. But at the same point, I think there's no way Brooklyn can pull this off and beat the Raptors. Now, one of the more interesting series that we're going to see, I think, throughout the playoffs, 76ers versus the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are going to be without Gordon Hayward for a couple weeks. I think they said 4 weeks. He went out there, had a serious ankle, not super serious ankle injury, but he had an ankle injury that's going to cost him a couple weeks here. So they wouldn't have him back until late in the playoffs. That takes only one of the playmakers away from Boston, though. I know Hayward had 12 points the other night, 5 for 13 from the field. What I think makes Boston so deadly is they have so many guys who are good ball handlers and good scorers. You got Jason Tatum, who's obviously emerged as a superstar. The other day he had 32 points and 13 rebounds. And you got Jaylen Brown, who's out there. He's a good 3D. Well, I mean, just a good 3D player. He's also getting better as a playmaker himself. 29 points, 3 steals, 4 assists, 6 rebounds the other day. And Kemba Walker running the point guard spot, 7 for 16 the other night, 19 points. I mean, this is a lineup that has just so many good ball handlers. And even that Tyson center has been a revelation for them this year. He's really done a lot for them, even though he's kind of undersized for the center spot, especially going against guys like Joel Embiid. But he's been really dominant for them. And you look at the bench. The bench is not great, honestly. The bench is not really that helpful outside of Marcus Smart, maybe Enes Kanter. But I think Boston's starting lineup is just so good. It'll be interesting to see how they replace Gordon Hayward and that impacts the series. Boston did beat Philadelphia 109-101. I think the Celtics have a clear advantage in this series, especially with Ben Simmons not available for the 76ers. And we look at them the other day. Joel Embiid, 26 points, 16 rebounds. He obviously is the driving force for them. We have Tobias Harris, who's so flip-flopping. He's so up and down as a player. 6 or 15 for 15 total points. You just can't have that kind of shooting that when you need to beat a team like the Boston Celtics, though. You need to be better than that. And honestly, Joel Embiid, he needs to be more assertive in the huddle. He can't take stuff from his teammates. When his teammates are telling him, or when his teammates aren't feeding him the ball, he needs to tell them, look, get me the ball. This is a guy who needs to be shooting the ball 20 to 23 times a night. They have such a size advantage over Boston. Joel Embiid is one of the biggest centers in the NBA in terms of just his size and strength. So you need to have this guy down by the hoop, banging with guys throughout the entire game. I know he can hit some three-point shots, but that's just not his forte. He's not super efficient with that. So Joel Embiid, 20 to 24 shots a night. That's what you need to have happen if you're the 76ers and you're actually trying to win the series. And Tobias Harris, of course, has to play a role as well. He has to be much better than what he was the other day. But, I mean, like I said, he's up and down. It's very hard to tell what you can get from him on a nightly basis. And that takes the last game of the first 2 days. It's the Dallas Mavericks versus the LA Clippers. Of course, the storyline from this game is not actually the actual score. It's Kristaps Porzingis getting thrown out the game with 2 soft texts. The first text he got, I think, was because of his reaction to a call he got when he got all ball. It was a clean block. The refs call him, and he goes around and kind of swings his fist a little bit. I think they probably teed him up for that more than so than the actual contact or anything like that. And then later in the game, Marcus Morris goes and gets in the face of Luka Doncic. They kind of walk, kind of jawing each other a little bit. Kristaps comes over, puts his hand on Marcus Morris. And I think that's why they teed him up, probably because he initiated the contact. But Marcus Morris then shoves him back. Even kind of pushes his throat a little bit. I think Morris should have been thrown out of the game for sure because of that. But Kristaps, second tee of the night, thrown out. And I just don't want to see guys get teed up and thrown out like that in the NBA playoffs. I don't think that's right, especially when it's a star player like Porzingis. And it made it even worse the fact that it was a close game at the time. Like the Mavericks were sticking with the Clippers. So I'm very upset by the fact that he teed him up again, threw him out. I don't think he really was deserving either tech. I honestly don't think either of them was really technical fouls. It was just soft refereeing the game. So that was very disappointing to see. And Kristaps hadn't been phenomenal up to that point, but he had been making an impact. 14 points and 6 rebounds in 20 minutes. Of course, Luka Doncic started the game, 42 points, 3 steals, 9 assists, 7 boards in 38 minutes. And he's going to have to score 40 tonight. He's going to have to put on a Damian Lillard type show if he wants this Dallas Mavericks to stay close with the Clippers. The Clippers didn't end up winning, of course, 118-110. I'm telling you, this is going to be a really good series, but I'm worried that the Clippers broke Dallas's back in the first game by winning that game because it was such a close one. I really think Dallas could have pulled it out if they had Kristaps late in the game. Of course, they don't. Now it's a very young team in Dallas, not a lot of playoff experience versus the Clippers who have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard obviously has been a champion in the past. Paul George has been in the playoffs plenty of times. Those two guys were the keys to their team as well. Leonard, 29 total points, 10 boards, 6 assists in 38 minutes. Paul George played 37 minutes, 27 points, 2 steals, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. And, of course, Lou Will coming off the bench, 14 points, even though he didn't have a great shooting night. Montrezl Harrell didn't really have much of an impact coming off the bench either. Only played 15 minutes. But that was all right. And then went out there and won the game. I don't think he would have been a great matchup for Dallas anyways. So, yeah, I mean, the Clippers really didn't have an answer for Doncic, which is a good thing for Dallas, by the way. That really bodes well for the future because, like I said, they need Doncic to be scoring plenty of points every game. I still have faith Dallas can make this a 6 or 7 game series, but they would need to win game 2. I don't think you can go down 2-0 with this young Dallas Mavericks team and then expect to come back. So I really think, like I said, it's going to be heartbreaking to lose that first game. And I think it's going to be even worse if you go down 0-2 or 2-0, and you're just not going to be able to recover from that. So I think the next game for Dallas and LA is going to be huge. And speaking as of next games right now, we have the Brooklyn Nets and Toronto Raptors on right now live. It's about halfway through the first. Brooklyn's up 22-12. And, of course, Dallas and LA are playing later today at 9 o'clock on TNT, so feel free to go watch that game. I think it'll be interesting. I think it's worth staying up to watch. Like I said, it's going to be one of the better first-round series we've seen in a little while. It's going to be one of the better first-round series this year. I think that one and the Lakers, Portland Trailblazers one are going to be series you want to watch. I think the West overall just has some great playoff matchups this year, much better than the East in my opinion. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm just looking forward to finally having playoff basketball, man. I've been waiting months for this. So thank you for watching. Please feel free to check out any of our other content on the Grueling Truth Facebook page. We have plenty of shows. We're really only just getting into basketball a little bit because I'm here now, and we have like one basketball show. We had one preview show a couple days ago. But we'll be putting out more, I can guarantee that, in the coming days. And, of course, we have daily football content, so feel free to check that out as well. Of course, plenty of boxing content as well. So a little bit of everything, I think, for a little bit of everyone. I think there's something you should be able to find and you can enjoy there. So feel free to go check those out. And thank you for tuning in today.